In Sumerian mythology, the underworld, known as Kur, was ruled by the goddess Ereshkigal. The Babylonians also had a similar concept of the underworld, which they called Irkalla. According to Sumerian mythology, the underworld was a dark and gloomy place where the souls of the dead went after they passed away. The journey to the underworld was perilous, and the souls had to navigate through the 7 gates, each guarded by a different deity. The 7 deities that guard each of the 7 gates in the underworld: Neti, Gedu, Enugi, Ninkasi, Ninima, and Bilulu, and Dumutsi, who shared the time with his sister, Geshtinana. Once in the underworld, the souls were judged by Ereshkigal and her consort, Nergal. The souls were then assigned to different levels of the underworld based on their deeds in life. The worst offenders were sent to the lowest level, where they were subjugated to eternal torment. The Babylonians, in their more complex version, divided it into several layers, each again with its own ruler. The souls of the dead had to pass through each level, facing different challenges and obstacles along the way. These ideas are reflected in Greek mythology as well as Egyptian. In the Orphic text, souls of the dead pass through Hades and be judged by Persephone and Pluto. One of the most famous stories from Babylonian mythology is the tale of Ishtar's descent into the underworld. Ishtar was the goddess of love and fertility, and she decided to visit the underworld to rescue her lover, Dumutsi. However, she was unable to pass through the gates of the underworld and was forced to remove her clothing and jewelry as a payment to the gatekeepers. Luckily, she was revived and saved by the Gali of heaven, who came down and brought her back to life. The purpose of each of the 7 gates in the underworld is to prevent the dead from escaping and to ensure that they are judged fairly before being allowed to enter to the afterlife. Each gate is guarded by a different deity, and each deity has a specific role in the judgment process. The first gate, guarded by Neti, who checks the name of the deceased against a list of those who are allowed to enter. The second gate, guarded by Gedu, who weighs the heart of the deceased against a feather to determine if they have lived a good life. This is reflected in the Egyptian myth of Sobek, who also weighs the heart against a feather, and if the heart is more heavy than the feather, the soul is consumed because they are not fit to go further into the afterlife. The third gate, guarded by the goddess Lahumu, who judges the deceased based on their deeds in life. The fourth gate is guarded by the god Shala, who determines if the deceased has been faithful to their spouse. The fifth gate is guarded by the goddess Ninlil, who judges the deceased based on their knowledge and wisdom. And the sixth gate, guarded by Nergal, who determines if the deceased has been a good ruler or leader. The seventh and final gate is guarded by the goddess Ereshkigal, who judges the deceased based on their overall worthiness to enter after the afterlife. The Babylonian 7 gates, slightly different than the Sumerian. Ereshkigal, the prominent figure in Sumerian and Babylonian mythology, is the goddess of the underworld. She is the sister of the god of the sky, Anu, and the god of earth, Enlil. She is depicted as fearsome and powerful goddess ruling over the dead and the spirits of the underworld. Ereshkigal held a senior status among the underworld deities, ruling over the category of the so-called Transtigridian snake gods. In 1903, two Minoan snake goddess figurines were excavated in the Minoan palace of Knossos in the Greek island of Crete. The combination of elaborate clothes that leave the breasts completely bare and snake wrangling remains a popular icon for Minoan art and religion, now also generally referred to as a snake goddess. It is quite possible that this goddess could be connected to Ereshkigal. Ereshkigal is often compared to other goddesses of death in the underworld, such as the Greek goddess Persephone and the Egyptian Isis. These goddesses are often depicted as powerful and fearsome figures, ruling over the dead and the spirits of the underworld. One of the most interesting aspects of Ereshkigal's mythology is her relationship with the god of fertility and vegetation, Dumuzi. According to some legends, Dumuzi was her lover, but he was also a symbol of life and fertility, like her. This relationship between life and death is a common theme in many mythologies and is often used to explore the cyclical nature of existence. Ningishida is a god in Sumerian mythology, known as the god of the underworld and fertility. He was often depicted as a serpent or a dragon and was associated with rebirth and regeneration. Ningishida has been compared to other serpent deities, such as the Greek god Asclepius and the Egyptian god Wadjet. Ningishida's titles connect him to plants and agriculture. The death of vegetation was associated with his annual travel to the underworld. He seems to be associated with an ancient form of the Dionysian Pluto that was worshipped by the Minoans, as the tree in his name might be vine, according to some Assyriologists, including Wilfrid Lambert, and an association between him and wine is well attested. For example, one text mentions him alongside the beer goddess Ninkasi, while one of his titles, Lord of the Innkeepers, just as Dionysus and Osiris ruled the underworld after they die and resurrect. Like his father, Ninatsu, he was associated with serpents and snakes, including the mythical Mushusu, Ushamgal, and Bashmu, and in one case, Nira. He was also an underworld god, and this role was known as the chair bearer, the chamberlain of the underworld, like Osiris. Franz Wigerman, on the basis of these similarities, considers him and his father to be members of the group Transtigridian snake gods, who, according to him, shared a connection with the underworld, justice, vegetation, and snakes, the cyclical nature of death and rebirth. Ninisina is a goddess in Sumerian mythology, known as the goddess of healing and medicine. She was also associated with fertility and childbirth. She's often compared to the Greek goddess Hygeia, who is also associated with healing medicine. Both of these goddesses are often depicted holding a serpent, which is a symbol of healing in ancient times. Additionally, Ninisina was often associated with the goddess Ishtar, who was also a prominent figure in Babylonian mythology. While Ishtar is associated with love and war, Ninisina was primarily associated with healing and alchemy. Liliki, the phantom maiden, making a home in the trunk of the world tree, may represent usurpation of control of the earth. The word translates to owl or death, bird goddess figure, or perhaps she is even a doppelganger of the figure of Inanna, Inanna's dark self, because there is the description of Liliki as a joyful, laughing, smiling maiden or seductress, having functions of sexuality and death. Liliki seemingly usurping control of the earthly realm from Inanna, making her home in the Hulupu tree trunk world tree. A snake living in the roots of the tree likely represents the usurpation of the control of the underworld and immortality. This snake is said to be immune from incantations, so it is powerful against otherworldly weapons. When Inanna finds these monstrous serpents in her world tree, she cries out to Gilgamesh to help get rid of them. The mythic figures Lilitu and Lilu are demons associated with wild places and other boundaries. Like Lamashtu, they attack pregnant women and babies. This is directly referenced in the book of Isaiah 34:14. And desert creatures will meet with hyenas, and satyrs will call out to each other. There also Lilith shall repose and find for themselves a resting place. In some Jewish folklore, such as the satirical alphabet of Sirach, Lilith appears as Adam's first wife, who was created at the same time from the same clay as Adam. Lamashtu is a female demon in Mesopotamian mythology, known for her malevolent nature and association with childbirth and infant mortality. She is often depicted with a lion's head, donkey teeth, and bird feet. She is often compared to Lilith in Jewish mythology, or Medea, as well as the Greek Gorgons. Lamashtu's unique characteristics and role in Mesopotamian culture make her a distinct figure in mythology. She bore 7 names, was described as 7 witches' incantations. Her evil deeds included, but not limited to, slaying children, unborns, causing harm to mothers and expectant mothers, eating men and drinking their blood, disturbing sleep, bringing nightmares, and the use of wild plants to make potions, bringing disease, sickness, and death. In Greek mythology, Medea is often associated with the death of her own children. This is because she killed them in revenge against her husband Jason, who betrayed her. Medea's actions are seen as a symbol of the destructive power of revenge and the consequences of letting anger and hatred consume us. Medea is also the daughter of a god and is a symbol of medicine, witchcraft, and alchemy. Like Lamashtu, she is often depicted as holding serpents and even pulled by a pair of dragons in her chariot. Ancient serpents and dragons are often depicted as demons in various ancient myths and legends. In Mesopotamian mythology, the dragon Tiamat was the symbol of chaos and destruction, while in Greek mythology, the serpent Python was a symbol of evil and darkness and was used by Apollo to create the Oracle of Delphi. In Chinese mythology, the dragon was often associated with the underworld and was considered a powerful and dangerous creature. Dragons and serpents are believed to hold supernatural powers and were often associated with magic and mysticism. In Canaanite mythology, Baal is a god who is said to have conquered the Leviathan, a sea monster or dragon. This story is often seen as a symbol of Baal's power over chaos and the forces of nature. The story of Baal and the Leviathan has parallels in other ancient myths, such as the story of Marduk and Tiamat in Babylonian mythology. The ancient Leviathan is a sea monster mentioned in the Hebrew Bible, defeated by Yahweh in the book of Psalms. It is often described as a giant serpent or dragon-like creature, multiple heads, and immense strength. In Jewish mythology, the Leviathan is seen as a symbol of chaos and destruction, while in Christian tradition, it is sometimes associated with Satan or the Antichrist. The Leviathan has been referenced in other cultures, such as Mesopotamian mythology, where it is seen as a symbol of primordial chaos that existed before the creation of the world. Tiamat is the primordial goddess of the Salt Sea in Babylonian mythology. She is often depicted as a dragon or serpent, associated with chaos and creation. According to the Numa Elish, Tiamat was defeated by the god Marduk, who split her body in two to create the heavens and earth. Tiamat's story has been interpreted in many ways, with some seeing her as a symbol of the natural world, and others as a representation of the dangers of chaos and disorder.